Well, hello, creatives, community, kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. And today, this Future Friday, of course, we're going to delve even further into Obsidian Star, a tabletop role playing game about um, a dark utopia in a post human world within our own solar system. So, me being a sci-fi head and being a creator and I guess a talking head on the internet about tabletop role playing games. Of course, I have to dip my toe into the creative space. I've been, uh, you know, creating supplements and such for Fifth Edition and Call of Cthulhu with the other members of the Critical Hit Publishing group. But this is just my little baby here, and I thought I'd give you guys a little intro into what the setting is kind of like, the fluff part of it. We'll get into the mechanics and the rules in later portions, but doing this travel log starting from the sun and Mercury moving on out. Today we're going to talk about Saturn, at least the first half. So uh, Saturn is notable for having its rings. Let's get an image of let's get a good image of Saturn here, and very notable because of the Saturnian rings that are around it, made up of mostly ice and frozen chemicals and things like that, and in many ways the mythological or the perceived imagery of the planets is also the physical manifestation of those things. So one of the most important requirements we need for humanity is ice, water, oxygen. Right? We need that H2O for life. In this setting, we have engines known as ice fire engines that burn um, hydrogen, oxygen, and other chemicals like methane and ethane. But uh, it's literally burning the very foundations of what we need for human life, and using that as fuel to travel the stars. And so there's this like a push and pull of literally burning away the very thing, the life-giving thing, and life-giving materials. And Saturn has a giant rings around its own planetary body that makes it easy to live here, far easier than many other places in the solar system. We've got readily available frozen water orbiting the planet in a very extremely stable, I guess you could say, is one of the most visibly stable Kessler syndrome issues. It's a giant gas planet. So as a gas giant, there's lots of gas mining. And if we literally take a look at yeah, let's share this tab out here. And if we literally take a look at this orbital picture, I love it. Um, uh, you can see that Saturn, while it's out there, it's not spinning as fast as Jupiter in the middle. Let's see if I could increase the size. Full screen. There we go. And um, really cool imagery. Sorry, just getting hypnotized by it. So, um, not only is there readily frozen water orbiting the planet in this beautiful ring system, and there's also gas mining, but also there are let's see if we can close this down here. There are 100 and where did I read that at? I just read it. Here we go. The planet has a prominent ring system, which is primarily composed mainly of ice particles with a small amount of rocky bodies, and at least 146 moons are known to orbit the planet, of which 63 are officially named. This does not include the hundreds of moonlets in its rings. And Titan, Saturn's largest moon and the second largest in the solar system, is larger, while a little less massive, than the planet Mercury, and is the only moon in the solar system to have a substantial atmosphere. That is the main part. All right, Shaiswa says, can't wait to hear about the non-corporeal entities that are the only life forms that can survive on the gas giants. Yeah, veritable space ghosts, as it were. There are, there's been, I think, our concept of what life will be, and this is just the scientist in me, which I love. The concept of what kinds of life forms we find out in the solar system. It's pretty interesting. I mean, pretty amazing, considering that a lot of the gas giants have many floating in their atmospheres are compounds that are needed for life, and I'm sure a lot of scientists have issues with the temperatures. Many of the gas giants have very hot cores and very frozen outer atmospheres, but there's probably a Goldilocks layer somewhere in these gas giants where we might find life. I mean, there's like you find the compounds and amino acids and things like that for life. Probably, I mean, given enough time, maybe there might be some gaseous life on these planets. And just like the Fermi paradox has kind of shown us that mathematically there's got to be life out there. It's just trying to find it, and just the great filters of why we don't find other life out there is pretty interesting in and of itself. I always thought it would be kind of cool to make a tabletop RPG based and create aliens based on the various filters that we think prevent us from seeing all this extra life out there. That'd be kind of cool because there's a ton of them. I think let me see if I can find it. Isaac, let's see. Isaac Arthur just put out. Yeah, SFI. You live up north there, dude. Live up north of me. Sorry, I gotta find it. There it is. All right, let's see if I can find this here. Throw this and share this tab out here. Isaac Arthur just put out a compendium. So of course he's very prolific, extremely organized and such. But there's a video here. It is 3 hours and 12 minutes plus of the Fermi Paradox Compendium of Solutions and Terms. Crazy. Does he list all the? No, he doesn't list it. He doesn't. Oh, there. Here we go. All right. So just in the in his own video, the doobly doo, it talks about all of the different hypotheses for aliens, and everything from, let's see, a set of fission hypothesis, aliens common but unrecognizable, um, anthropic principle, ascension, asteroid impacts. It's crazy. Aurora effect, axial tilt, berserkers and hibernating monsters. I mean, it goes on and on and on. The Dyson dilemma, dark forest theory. I mean, whew. Yeah, look at that. It's a over 3 hour panspermia, miniaturization, mediocrity principle. Yeah, ocean to land ratio, quiet aliens, rare earth hypothesis. All the reasons why we don't see aliens. Crazy. The zoo hypothesis. A lot of people think of the zoo hypothesis and the is a virtual, there it is, virtual reality utopia hypothesis, vulnerable world hypothesis that basically, you know, alien alien cultures are very vulnerable, we're very fragile, or they don't want to talk to us. They don't use light to communicate, or they are talking, we can't hear them. Stellar neighborhoods. Kind of cool. Anyway, let's get back to it. Sorry. Okay. Um, so much like Saturn has a ring around it, and a R&B song if you liked it, you would have put a ring on it. Saturn is despite its distance from Earth, um, in the Obsidian star setting, it's actually a great place to settle. So, being so far removed from Terra and Luna and humanity in general, and the conflicts on the inner ring with Mars and the asteroid belt, getting away from the problems that Jupiter has with its, is essentially a criminalized governing organization. Saturn is itself with 63 named moons and 146 moons with plenty of ice and water allows a society here to yeah, I'm with you, dear Drew. Allows a society to flourish on Saturn. Yeah, Drew says I would not want to communicate with humankind either. Yeah, it's pretty daunting. Uh, the scientific reasoning why aliens don't talk to us, or we haven't been able to see them or communicate or find them, and then all mathematically speaking, the universe, our solar system, not our solar system, our galaxy should be full of life, and multiple galaxies should be it should be rampant life, mathematically speaking, but we don't see it. And so these are all the reasons why this big giant list, and it's a compendium because Isaac Arthur does plenty of videos, and probably has organized all of the videos into this 3 hour thing, and then reduced them down to um, just consumable chunks, as it were. And so, yeah, the Dyson dilemma is an interesting one because advanced civilizations would want to create a Dyson swarm or sphere around their star to use all of its energy. Um, the Dyson sphere has never been an actual solid object. The Dyson sphere is actually a swarm of uh, created constructs to absorb the sun's energy to the point where using the observable universe, wouldn't be able to see their star or planets because they would have dismantled their planets to make them into habitable zones using the entirety of the sun's energy. Basically, something should be blocking stars, and we don't see that at all anywhere. And but I bet it's because of probably some of these other filters, like if a society made a Dyson swarm around their own star, knowing that other people would notice it, maybe they don't want to be noticed, etc. And then there's all kinds of things like Goldilocks zones and things like that. The hermit shoplifter hypothesis is pretty funny. I haven't listened to this, but the titles are, you can kind of look at them. Yeah, the Jovian vacuum cleaner hypothesis and the Kardashev scale and stuff. Yeah, pretty fun stuff there. All right. Shai says they don't communicate with us because they are dozens of light years away at minimum, and any kind of travel is practically impossible at those ranges. It's not because we're bad. Well, here's the issue: what if those societies existed a millennium before we even came around? Wouldn't they have already left their planets? Right? Mathematically speaking, wouldn't there be societies that have already existed and already traveled the stars long before we came about? But one issue is rarity, right? Like there could be aliens sending out signals just like we are. It's just they're just so far away that we haven't. It'll take us a millennium to grow for those signals even to reach us, right? And this is the rabbit hole of trying to, contact aliens. Like, why would there only be one alien race? Why wouldn't there be tens of millions of alien species like us? And then, of course, the idea is that maybe they're all communicating in different ways. Like, there's no reason why an alien race would use math or light or different types of energy if there's other energies available to them. She says, okay, I will not get off on another tangent about the impossibility of practical interstellar travel. Isaac Arthur mentions that a lot. Like, you would just have to have seed ships and things like we would have to have a society that understands that the group that leaves won't be the group that arrives unless we can extend our own lifespan, in which we would just have generational ships and just live 300, 400, 500 years as digital information and artificial bodies, as um, uh, genetic material that arrives somewhere else, and then our concept of of what is life like. Would we accept the fact of sending 3D printers and our own genetic material to other places, things like that. Hey, so do I. Yeah. Like, greeting fellows humans. I too like eating Twinkies and paying taxes. I think you like one of those more than the other one. Shai says, to sum up, space dust, cosmic rays, years in weightlessness will kill you. Civil war after years on a spaceship. Generational ships equal civil war. Oh, dude, the Civil War would start before the ship even launched. Don't get it twisted, right? I'm totally with you on that one. You put people in a bottle, and it could get pretty harsh. What was it? The first murder in Antarctica happened because one of the people settled in, it's either Antarctica or the Arctic Circle. Anyway, they only had a limited an amount of resources and entertainment, and one of the pieces of entertainment was reading books. And there was a gentleman there who would read the books and thought it was funny to give away the ending for the books to the other members that live there, to ruin the endings. Thought it was funny. That person ended up getting murder killed. Right? So not only are we sensitive to murder killing people, but there are also other people who, despite their better judgment, will do things to have someone murder kill them. Right? So neither side is right. So yeah, a lot of that stuff would already happen long before we got seed ships. Shai says they're almost certainly incredibly advanced civilizations, but they can't do magic. They can't just open a dimension door and teleport right here. Exactly. But the question would be, mathematically speaking, why wouldn't those places have already left home, even if it took them tens of thousands of years to do so? Right? And just creating more ships along the way and stopping along and then having another society leave from there to go to another place. It doesn't matter how long it takes. It's the determination, right? Why wouldn't these intergalactic civilizations have already seeded their own places? Like, Obsidian Star is about um, our society in our own solar system out to the Oort cloud. So long before we go to Alpha Centauri, even though in Obsidian Star there are seed ships that have tried to go or are going out there, no one knows if they've arrived yet. Why wouldn't there be civilizations that settled their own moons and created space habitats and go into the next planet in their star system and then seeded that one? And then another society goes out to, yes, the next planet out and things like that. And so Saturn is a perfect example of another society that has grown up in and around a planet and a star system with the resources able to live there with plenty of water. It's a great place. Problem is, Saturn having all this water around it means that there's lots of interlopers who want to steal the ice and take it for themselves. Now, reading on the details of Saturn, of course, we don't know all the details, that with all the space dust and rocky bodies and ice that are orbiting Saturn, while there's plenty of water ice, um, it's not. They are not as large as massive continent-sized comets and things of that nature. So while it's plentiful for the people on and around, not on Saturn, but orbiting Saturn and living on the moons around Saturn, it's not very practical for someone to come in, steal a giant chunk, and take it to Mars. But it's very possible for small pirates slash entrepreneurial members and investors to come in, steal some of the ice, and get the hell out of there. So there is that problem. But with the plentiful ice, which gives plenty of oxygen and hydrogen for power to breathe. Of course, there's other gas giant elements, because we don't breathe pure oxygen. We breathe lots of nitrogen and particles and things like that. It's actually quite low oxygen we breathe. It's great for creating a society. But since it's so far away from Earth, Terra, and Luna, so far away from that out here, it's extremely post-human. Whole societies made up of artificial beings. The planet Titan itself is a massive computer system with used for the sole purpose of trying to create a godhead, to create an AI system or a networking system that essentially can predict um, predict the universe. They are trying to create a a computer that has enough information about the universe that that computer creates a universe. That's where the cogs come from, with able to predict the future, with using massive amounts of data. You have these individuals that are they're part Star Rangers, part um, cultists, um, part monks that are out there experiencing the universe and using all of their experiences to feed the machine. It's pretty strange and a bit odd, but it exists. And so while there's lots of air quotes humanity moving out to Saturn, we wouldn't recognize many of the communities as being human at all. People living in mechanical bodies that don't look human. There are VR, virtual reality worlds that people have retired to or uploaded themselves to, or supporting lives, so that maybe sometime in the future, an entire virtual reality community of tens of millions or even billions of people or more could then travel the stars as digital information to arrive somewhere else, to have their bodies built out of the rocky bodies, and basically 3D printed, so that they could take on a physical aspect and stuff. Hey, heathen. Yeah, no problem, man. Hey, get some rest. Anne says, I just read a great novel called Athos, where humanity had to leave Earth and handed control pretty much to AI to help them survive. And that's a big thing today, right? AI systems and what they would be. My concept is that there wouldn't be one big, we fear one AI system, Cyberdyne system, right? One AI takes over everything. But I'm using the concept of there being trillions of AIs, all of them associated with each individual, and that there's this ebb and flow of them combining and breaking apart, because each human being has their own AI system that is out to protect themselves, which is really odd. Yeah, yeah. Happy end to another arbitrary slice of eternity. Exactly. All right, so um what's the good and bad and ugly of being around Saturn? Well, the good part is that um, our concept of a utopia is Saturn, right? On a glossy surface, shiny space space jumpsuits, individuals as perfecting themselves as humanity and working together as a collective, and things like, oh, you want to be a scientist? This is the place to be. That's the good part of it. What's the bad part is, if you are if you are not a collective individual, you are individualist to the core, and you don't like working with people. You don't like the idea of, let me say the bad word, uh socialist communities. You're not going to like being out here in Saturn. It is very much a progressive, communal, the different moons, yes, they do ebb and flow, but there's lots of scientific discoveries, and they're trying to push the boundaries of technology out here. So that's the bad part, is you kind of have to be a science nerd to fit in. If you're not, it's going to be hard for you to fit in where you can get in. Lastly, but what's the ugly part? Um, when scientists are let loose on the world, and we see this in our own society, without regards to the side effects of what they could create, and it's creation for creation's purpose, there can be a lot of mistakes that happened, and unintended consequences, even though these people are pretty brilliant. And you have systems where brilliant people can multiply their own brains to make themselves 20 times more brilliant by working with 20 other scientists, which are just copies of themselves. That the idea that creating von Neumann nanotechnology, which is nanotechnology that has the ability to replicate itself uncontrollably, is a issue. Creating black holes in a for the purpose of creating black hole star engines is an issue. Trying to fold space, um, just the idea of just using nuclear technology and things of that nature uncontrollably in space is an issue out here in Saturn. And while they do tend to police their own, it's pretty easy for a lot of them to get recruited to go off in other areas of our own solar system, and that can become a problem, become a huge problem. Uh, A.N. Boone says in that novel there is like one AI system per settlement, and they run on different modes or priorities. And there are a few humans who make sure these AI run smoothly. They are called inquisitors. That's awesome. That's all. I mean, someone would have to monitor the system, the AI systems, and in reality, like um, there are how do I explain this? Uh, People who believe that we should run ahead of the AI apocalypse of sorts. That we should be fermenting, we should be training we AI now to be our best friends. Hey, hey, taste of I'm gonna butcher this. Taste of Banat, Banat says greetings from Lagos, Romania, birthplace of Bela Lugosi. Hey, well, hello. I'm glad you're here. Um, I have so many questions because I love interacting with people that are not here in the states. Because I like to know how people live and stuff. So I'm glad you're here. We'll have these conversations at some point. Bela Lugosi is dead is undead. That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for being here. We're talking about Saturn and its use in a tabletop role playing setting, and well, at least my concept of it. I also feel like Saturn would be a great place for um, I want to say like isolated communities, a community that has easy access to ice water and other base materials for being able to survive out in space, and finding themselves their own moon or moonlet, and then basically closing the doors and not letting outsiders in would also be an issue as well, especially as we start to go further out into um, Uranus and Neptune and the Kuiper Belt with Pluto and Charon and the other Oort-Cloudian objects. And it says, I often go to Romania for hiking. It's beautiful in the Romanian Carpathians. Thank you. Yeah, pronunciation was reasonably decent. Yeah, yeah. And we have fun with pronunciations here because I often put the incorrect emphasis on the improper syllable, right? And which basically, people complain about you're pronouncing it wrong, and the reason there is no right or wrong for making any pronouncing any word. It's always pronunciations by um, consensus, because 100 years from now, we will probably be perceived as pronouncing everything today wrong in the future, right? So, yeah, it's just consensus. I think people get themselves wrapped up in stuff a little bit too much. But I do appreciate it. I still, it's still, but I know what it feels like because it still bothers me that the word valet and valet are used interchangeably here in the States as kind of like the same thing, but they're not. Uh, wow. The Ukrainian side of the Carpathians is wonderful too, even now, barely touched by the war. Wow. Have no I have no relationship to that. I have no concept of what that would be like, just being near, war torn. Well, we got our own urban wars going on, but that's a different thing. So, let me find something else here. Share this instead. So, um, lastly, I will say that the idea of Saturn. Oh, if you guys don't know, simply because of the orbital changes and things that if you are a armchair astronomer, we through 24 and 2025, we won't be able to see the Saturn's rings. They're actually going to disappear. And it's just because of the axial tilt of the planet as it starts to orbit that that plane of the plane of the axial tilt will be so even with us that we it'll just be a thin line. You won't be able to actually see the rings as rings. It'll be a thin line um, across the planet, which is pretty cool. Let's get to Saturn. Let's get some real images in here. Kind of cool. Kind of cool. All right. Let's see what you guys say. Goat herding. That's awesome. You know what? I think, well, no time soon, but I would love to do a compare and contrast channel between like um the states and other countries and do compare and contrast about all kinds of things from food to the environment to the weather to any all kinds of cultural aspects, things like that. Yeah, I would love to do that. Like the one thing that I've heard is here in the United States we have lots of closet space compared to many of the European countries that don't have closets at all. And we use garbage disposals here far more often. There, it's far more plentiful than other places. You get a sink, and where the drain is, there's a disposal thing that grinds up food, and you run water down into it when you have. You should only put edibles down through a garbage disposal, but it's literally a grinding thing. And of course, it's always used in American movies where someone drops something down there and gets ready to reach their hand into it. Yeah, yeah. Drew says the thin Saturnian line. Yep, thin Saturnian line. Yes, these images. You take a look at these images, and these are all tilted images. I think right. Let's see if I can pull this image up here. Um, Mind-blowing images of Saturn from the Cassini orbiter. This thin line, as Saturn starts to move, as we in our relationship to Saturn starts to move, that we might be able to see a shadow across the planet, but the ring will actually just be this thin line, and that's a moon. Of course, I don't think this is a real image here. We'd have to see other ones. Let's see if we could visit. Let's see if it'll give us no pop-ups, please. Oh, look, kitty cat. All right. Can I make this bigger? These are. I think that's an image of itself. Is that a cool image of itself? There it is. Oh, sorry. That is a real image of Saturn. Sorry, I know I'm popping. Image of a storm. These were 2015 images taken during the Cassini spacecraft's orbital insertion, June 30. Yeah, it is a real image. That is a real image. I did not know that. Saturn has on its poles, the north and south poles, have these weird geometric storms. Difficult to see here, but that's not a circle. These are straight lines, like a hexagonal storms. Weird. All right. Anyway, flipping through some of these images here. Very sweet. Oof. Deliver glorious view of Saturn taken while passing by. Hydrocarbon C. That's what I meant. Not amino acids, hydrocarbons. Geez, my brain. Anyway, that's what I wanted to get back to. Okay, sorry about that. Sophie wants some water from Saturn. Yeah, she's there. She's sleeping over in the corner. Shai says, "I love." Yeah, Shai says, "Good point. Never seen a garbage disposal after nearly 20 years in Europe." Yeah. Says, I love compare and contrast cultures, but the one big thing to keep in mind from the alien's eye perspective, virtually any country with any big infrastructure, first and second world, would be the same. That's true. I mean, look. I mean, just because of our technological relationship to each other, lots of stuff, even like clothing brands and food images and food brands and holidays. We're starting to blend and keep and contrast in those things back and forth, right? You're fine. Yeah. But anyway, I love that kind of stuff. All right, so uh, anyway, that's enough about Saturn. Saturn being such a high tech community, what is trying to protect itself. Unfortunately, evildoers, um, scammers, criminals, governments, cultists, entrepreneurs and stuff absolutely positively want to take advantage of technological improvements. And so, on one hand, we love ourselves science sci geeks, right? We love ourselves scientists that are able to solve a problem using technology. Uh, but the problem with that is unintended consequences, right? Uh, we have ourselves social media that wraps around the world to allow everybody to communicate. Yay! Problem is, we have a social media that wraps around the world to allow everybody to communicate. Maybe our brains aren't necessarily designed, communally. Maybe we're not designed for that. Maybe we're not designed to care about everything around the world. Maybe our concept, our own minds can't deal with those kind of things. I mean, we're even destroying our own youth because they are measuring their worth based on likes and shares and subscriptions and thumbs ups and comment sections and things like that. Yeah, yeah. How brains are not designed. Period. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right about that, Drew. Like, yeah, but in films, the aliens always know the United States of America are the place to be. Yeah, they never land like there's never aliens that land in like uh oh, our brains are not designed. Period. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe depends on who you ask. Some would say that there is a design to the universe, depending on who you talk to. Mm-mm-mm. And maybe we're just a lucky accident, or it's just a natural progression of of evolution. And with technology, some would say that technological innovation is our own evolution. Others would say that technology prevents evolution because we are now making conscious choices about stepping forward, as opposed to evolution happening, Darwinian evolution. But then some would say, well, technology allows us to survive when those without that technology can't survive. So that in and of itself is kind of an evolutionary track. For example, some say that it's really weird, but yes, you can go down rabbit holes of things like that. Drew says that is silly to think the universe's design is like being a puddle and think the hole is made for the water to form the puddle. I hear you. I don't have a like. I'm a very agnostic individual. Um, I don't believe that within every generation is going to have its own mysteries to discover. So I think that some mysteries will be discovered only to find out that there's 10 more mysteries beyond the answer to a thing. Um, but I also don't believe like you would have to prove to me either the entire universe is only scientific, or the entire universe is only a grand creation by someone, right? Like I don't believe either one is either true or false. Um, and who's to say like like if we're living in a virtual reality, or we're living in a cosmic zoo by some grand interdimensional beings, what's above them? Are they, like our relationship to ants? If we're like ants to another greater species or something, what's above them? What, like, there's always layers upon layers. It would be pretty interesting to find that out, that in some way, shape, or form. I mean, it's using using science fiction itself as an issue. It's like, do vampires believe in aliens? Right? We tend to fall into our own silos of thinking, and I don't have a problem with that. I just think it's funny because, you know scientific theory is the fact that we're always asking questions. And some people are just like, oh no, the world is completely agnostic. It's like, well, how do you, I mean, not agnostic. There isn't anything, there's no evidence of spirituality, therefore it doesn't exist, which in itself is making a statement about a thing that you don't know. You know what I mean? Now it could be another reasoning for it, but I think we could get to the point where um we may find out that there is a, I don't want to say consciousness is, it's hard to, because then you start turning religion. um it would be interesting to find out that, like, galaxies have been put into place for the sole purpose of other beings to watch what happens over a billion years, to see what happens, right? It's kind of weird that way, right? And that's just the philosophy, the philosophical mindset that I have in my head. Like, that would be interesting. I don't know, man. Vampires, like, what, with sunlight and vampires? How does that work with space travel? Van Boom says, "Ha, reminds me in the last Loki episode. Oh no, it's a fiction problem." Yes, I just saw the last episode. I just literally finished it 5 minutes before we went on air. Pretty interesting. Drew says, "Yeah, Loki was great, but I think even in fiction, it's usually better to ask for how and what and not why." Yeah. It's not. It's Yeah, because the why. Children, you ever hear the annoyingly interesting thing where kids like, but why, like, why is the sky blue, but why, and then it's just infinite whys on it, as opposed to, like, how and what happened and who and where's and things like that. The whys, you just go down a deep rabbit hole of the abyss. Hmm. You see what I did there? Shai says vampires. Now they could handle 20 years in interstellar space on the way to Proxima Centauri B, no problem. Yeah, I don't know how vampires would handle ultraviolet light. And, like, I don't know. Drew says, isn't there a sci-fi series that has vampires? I think to remember Quinn talking about it. Yeah, Quinn. Quinn. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. Quinn has a podcast now. Quinn's Ideas, and where's the Cosmic Chronicles. So the one, I make nerdy videos. Let's share this tab out here. So there's Quinn's Ideas, and then there is um 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 let's see. And then Quinn has a Cosmic Chronicles podcast. So if you want to listen to something that's a little bit more long form, half hour, 45 minutes, listen to that as well. If you're a big um, Quinn Quinn's Ideas aficionado, but you haven't made that jump over there, do that. Let's see. Bam. There you go. Juice, have you watched Heath with the Alexandrian yesterday? Uh, there he also mentioned why, and I would say the why can be the thing happens because that is the dice have rolled that way. Yes, I was listening. Okay, so we're like a little bit of an incestuous group in here, in the good way. Ooh, in the good. Ugh. Sorry, YouTube, but you get my point there, Drew. Where we listen to the same thing, and I was listening to the Heath reading the book that Alexandrian is putting out about um, how do you become a dungeon master, game master, and does a step-by-step method in what you do and how you do it and stuff like that. And yeah, talking about the dice and the dice rolling and all that. Yeah, I don't, and the whole fudging idea, which is just like there's no reason to fudge dice. There's so many tools we have and skills that we have available to have to fudge dice is pretty unreasonable and ridiculous since we're deciding to play a game with random polyhedrals in the first place. It's pretty dumb to have to change a number on the fly like that. Like why? Shai says UV light, good point, but they'd spend the whole time in their coffins. Okay, yeah. So no problem, but I guess they would still collide with space dust and explode with the force of an H bomb. That's my issue with space travel. I'm with you about that. Like, um, useless information. In the Dune series, the folding of space actually came about from the movie creators, not the writer of the books. Um, the guild navigators actually use spice to predict hazards in front of the ships to avoid space dust. And that was the point of the guild navigators, that they would be able to predict the future so that they could avoid collisions with things with starships to navigate um so, superliminal light speed, getting as you get closer to light speed, the faster you go. If you just impact space dust, the impact is like an H bomb, right? It will just punch through a ship and make an explosion that annihilate most man-made objects. But during the making of the movie, they interpreted the books as bending space, like bending a piece of paper and sticking a pencil through it. You bend space and can travel from one place to another, and that's how the guild navigators are able to bend space and to the point where their bodies are even mutated and they don't even look human anymore. And so I don't know, will we ever make technology that can do that? Probably not. I just think that we will probably just travel through space very slowly. We already have volunteers who want to go to Mars, and that's a multi it might be a very many months, maybe a multi-year journey just to get human beings to Earth to Mars. I think we'll just baby step our way through space. Shai says, but Proxima Centauri B is tidally locked, so they could spend the whole time on the dark side if they could make it there. There's actually moons like that are tidally locked, that where the dark side is never facing the brightness. So I don't know. Or are vampires better in space because the sunlight filters through our atmosphere? That would be pretty interesting to come about. I don't know. Hmm. Hmm. Things that make you go, hmm. All right. So you guys know, I showed you the logo before and that kind of dumb stuff. Obsidian Star. We will do character creation as well. In the system, I'm probably going to use the Rules Light Lumen system, but I've expanded it. So you'll pick an approach. There's like 6 approaches, and you pick 3 of them. Um, Death is off the table in a certain kind of way, but it's still pretty horrible, because not only do you have an approach, you also have a method of striving forward, and every time your character dies, you eliminate one of them. So you basically have 6 chances to progress forward in the world, even if your character dies, because when you come back, yeah, Drew says that sunlight harms vampires is almost mostly a Hollywood thing. Uh, that wasn't in the past literature. Hmm. Yeah, but the sunlight, the garlic, the silver, stake through the heart, running water, mirrors, all that stuff. Yeah, it's pretty. That's what, probably the last 100 years, 150 years of vampire mythology that we've kind of embraced. It's actually gotten to the point where, like, what was it? The Blade movie, and movies about vampires actually have to explain to the viewer, oh, these aren't the vampires you're thinking of. Our vampires are a little bit different, and here's how. And then they say, well, vampires are vulnerable to silver. Holy symbols don't do anything to them. Our vampires can walk around during the daylight. Like you almost have to explain your own mythology, and then and to the consumer, go, oh, that's why your vampires are walking around. Yeah, there was even a short-lived television show. Let's see if I can find it. There was a short-lived television show, Kindred, the the Embraced. Let's see. Yeah, Kindred the Embraced, 90s horror series. I don't know if it was horror. It was actually more like, um it was closer related to to a soap opera, and unfortunately the main individual, Mark Frankel, had passed away, and that, along with yeah, Kindred the Embraced, Prince of the City, based on um, the tabletop role playing game Vampire the Masquerade during the 90s. So, yep, Kindred the Embraced. Little known thing. There we go. Let's put that in there and get to, where's Mark Frankel? There he is. He was the Ventrue, Prince of the City, and then he had each character represented a different vampire clan, tribe, bloodline. For my own vampires, I simply have vampires not be capable of using any powers during the day, and thus they feel much weaker, which is why they avoid being active there, which makes a lot of sense to me, right? And also, let's be honest, we want to write them and do some creative stuff with vampires. That's the perfect thing you want to do with them, right? Um, but anyway, guys, thank you very much for being here. I didn't think we'd even go this long. So Saturn is just yet another place as we go further away from the sun, humanity spreading out into the greater interstellar universe. I think our own solar system is interesting enough for it to be a playground for tabletop role playing, combining the science, using the problem of science being a feature for role playing. I love that part of it as well. I really don't have a problem with it at all. Gas giants and ice giants and so many moons, and then you tackle into that probably 2 to 5 times as many man-made orbital habitats, because human beings can create these habitats. And then what kinds of habitats are they? um you know Taste of Banat says, I want to buy your book. You're so silly, making a I'm assuming you did that on purpose. Chances are I'm probably not going to sell it. I'll probably give it away for free, for a number of reasons. A, I would rather be a creator. Um, I don't want to be a layout artist. I don't want to be a financial analyst. I don't want to be a armchair, I don't know, salesman and all that other kind of stuff. You can start to go down the deep hole of like, uh I'm no longer a game designer. I'm more of a corporate, um, you know, publisher or something like that, and I don't want to do that. So I'll create it. I'll run it through a number of passes by you guys, like the artwork and stuff. I'm still debating, because I know there's a big issue with like Chat GPT and AI art, whether you should or shouldn't use it. I fall on the side of not using it at all, but it actually would fit the it's weird because it actually would make sense to use something like that as a backdrop for a creative thing. We also know that when it comes to AI art and Chat GPT, AI assisted systems, that they're actually not as good as we think they are. They're not true AI. There isn't any creative spark. It's all created by the spark of the creator who's inputting it. I mean, we did a live Chat GPT creation thing, and it's not very good. Um, you're going to retire, and it's going to be awesome. Living the dream. Hell yeah. And listen, when I was a teenager, I was like, I want to grow up to be like a comic book artist or like a game designer, like something in a huge creative field. And I became basically a wage worker, right? I'm a letter carrier, almost 30. By the end of the year, it'll be 31 years. I'm gonna put 35 years in and then retire. And yeah, Shai says, as a translator, I can tell you a few things about AI and its in limitations. Yep, it's a lot of limitations on it. It's today, it's not as good as people think it is. It can do some amazing things and it blows our minds, but it's not as good as we think it is. And now, there are some people who are very good at manipulating it, but the amount of effort you put into it to make it do what you want, you're almost like you might as well have just done it yourself without using it. The number of hours it would take to make an AI system, say, write a sci-fi book for you that has any interest in anybody else, you should have just wrote it yourself, like without its system. Yeah. Drew says, for my system, I decided not to use any art at all since I am a word purist anyway, and think relying on illustrations is bad for the hobby. I know, but I'm one of those people that I'm one of those people that makes. I like art. I like no. Go backwards. Um, there is an art in laying out words. So the font you choose, the size you choose, um, the layout structure, 2 column, 3 column, 1 page, sidebar. Um, Art also allows me as a visualist to navigate a book. So when I flip through a book, a piece of art it's not the art that interests me, but I can remember where something is based on what is used to break up a thing. Like a chart, a random table, a side note in a book will give me visual clues and cues when I read through something that's just nothing but blocks of text. Because blocks of text, if you go 4, 5, 6 pages of blocks of text, it it starts to blur. It's the equivalent of having too much art, right? If you put too much art and there's not enough words in it, Spelljammer is a perfect example. After a while, it starts to numb the brain, and you're like, "Oh, good picture, nice picture, nice picture. Where's my meat?" Right? All I'm eating is parsley. Mufa says, "I use AI art for my games to present to players and make character and NPC portraits." Yeah, yeah. I'd never use it for anything I would publish, though. Oh, I would never use it for anything to make money off of, or even to claim that it's something I did that, right? Like if I were to use AI art, I would be blasted across the bottom or side thing or like, this is AI art, guys. And we know because it's horrible. Right now it's very horrible at creating hands and things like that. So sometimes you can look at the art and go, that's an AI art artifact in the background, isn't it? That kind of thing. So and by the way, we all know that despite the fact that it is taking jobs and things, it's basically a huge search engine rather than a or conversational search engine. um, Beyond the theft, it's a search engine um, substitute rather than like if I get on Wikipedia or I get online and I go, I want to find blah blah blah. I could type my exact word into Chat GPT and it can come back to me with an answer. It's just using theft, but not telling me where that answer came from. Yeah, Drew says I try to avoid the blocks of text by having very short sections and give a keyword in bold at most. Yep. And see that's the thing too. There's art in that. Do you use italics, bold words, capitalizations, bullet points, paragraph structure? It Literary layout is an art form unto itself because there's a science to it. I'm going to give you. This is something that I appreciate 5e did that surprisingly um, is actually very good. So I'm holding up. This is the Sigil book for Planescape that just was created, and they have a 2-page layout. So you can't really see it because there's a big reflection. I've got like one, two, I've got 3 lights going on here. But this page layout, it goes from this side of the book to this side of the book, and everything you need is on 2 pages. And having a 2 page layout means that when I turn the page, the very next 2 pages, they have a layout. And what do they have? They have a piece of art right down at the bottom of this page. So you can see like it's right in the middle, like a little bit of a symbol, or it's actually a breakout section with a little bit of lore right there. And then we have over here a piece of artwork. Now, you don't really need to remember this piece of artwork, but you do know that every time you turn another page, there's another block of artwork hanging up at the very top, and you can see how it's very similar. So uh, I give a lot of kudos to the unconscious, I mean, the very subtle. Thank you there, Drew. Yeah. So while I am arguing with you, Drew, I'm actually agreeing with you that there is an if you don't have any artwork in your book, there's still an art to the layout. So having like being able to find artistic, I want to say, um, you can run. Do I have an example here? Shit, all I have is 5e, and it's hmm. All right. Okay. Let me see if I can find something that's appropriate because this is the only book in front of me, and I'm trying to find something where it's just a block of text. So, okay. Um, some there is a watermark. Okay, I want to use this as an example. The paper here has a watermark on it that tries to make it look like it's old. So that's a thing you can do. You can see across the top here. While this talks about factions, if you use art assets that are just like symbols or splashes of ink or blood or a coffee stain or a comet or um, a pet's like a tiger's paw, something that isn't necessarily a paid for image, but a free to use imagery that emulates what you are describing, like faded newspaper print, sepia colored photographs, um, a muddy footprint, something like that at the top or bottom or in the middle or across the bottoms. What else is very useful for layout? Using bars. So sometimes you can divide text by a colored bar, like a gold or red or blue or black line that can separate text into different blocks. And then you can also use different colors for layout. Like if I have lore in my fantasy book and I want to use a breakout paragraph that is like 5 lines of dialogue between like a wizard, don't go into the dark forest back in the year, blah, blah, blah. And it's written in the voice of a sage. I could use, say, white page. This is, no, I don't use bars. I drop. Yeah. Definitely, you definitely, if you like listening to bars, you definitely got to listen to Coast Contra. You you definitely do. Anyway, so, but yes, using bars, breakout boxes, different fonts. So you can have a breakout box. Let's say you're using a gray background. Maybe the breakout box is like a green or a yellow. You have, and then you use a different font inside of that box. We know psychologically, oh, this is a um, um, what oh narrator um uh boy, my brain just farted. uh it could be an unreliable narrator speaking about your world, so that a person with an agenda is speaking about some facet of the fantasy realm, and you have that in a different font in a box with a different color, and then that can be different things. GURPS, GURPS layout does this, where they use a 25% or 25%, 75%, or maybe it's 33, 66%, where the main mechanics are 66% of the column, and then there's a 33% sidebar, or maybe it's 75-25. Anyway, GURPS does that a lot. Sorry, went down a rabbit hole of layout. It's like, what's he talking about? French toast, what? Yes. Um, yeah, if you want real bars, you want to go to let me punch these out. Punch these guys out here. Um, uh, I'm gonna give them a shout out because I'm so happy about these guys. Coast Contra, check them out if you're into hip hop, rap music, and you don't like you like people who are um, expert at their craft and have multi-layered, multi-symbolic um, structures that require you to like. They put out a 10-minute freestyle where there are people who have 45-minute breakdowns of trying to understand the lyrics, not because they're confusing, but because they are multi-layered. They're giving you multi-layered descriptions. It's pretty cool, and so I really appreciate that. I actually at one point I've dabbled myself. I've considered myself to be a at least a writer of hip hop lyrics at one point, and I thought about doing some like fantasy Dungeons and Dragons hip hop lyrics on T-shirts, like 16 bars of like from being point of view of like a wizard or an ogre or like a dragon or something like that. I thought that would just be kind of fun to do at one point, but anyway, I've taken too much of your time. I've gone off. Someone pushed me down a black hole, and I'm blaming you guys. No, Drew and everybody else. Thank you very much for being part of being here. We're going to have some fun as we get later on into other things. We're going to still do our Planescape thing. Maybe next week. I don't want to go all the way down to 666 layers of the abyss. You guys know what the hell's going on down there. We may do Monday and Tuesday on it and get out of there, and then we're going to go to the upper layers of the lawful and good planes of existence and see what the hell we can find there, or the chaotic and good planes of existence, and how they are described and such. Which some of them are pretty interesting, and there is some adventure to be had there. It's not all mint julep and sitting on the porch drinking sweet tea and stuff. It's not all that, but pretty cool. But anyway, just before we get out of here, yeah. Thank you. Shai says there's a great overlap between RPGs and lyrics. There is. There's plenty of we don't give enough credit to the musicians in the RPG community. There's plenty of musicians that have been creating like tons of music and fun lyrical progressions and poetry, as it were, and fantasy and stuff. I mean, listen, lots of poetry started. Much of ancient poetry was telling us like ballads and stories and things about fantasy. So yeah, Drew says that sounds awesome. Tell me more about fantasy hip hop lyrics. Oh, it would be so fun to have like a dragon with a big old gold chain, talking about how hard it is sitting on his gold. So he says not necessarily even fantasy sci-fi lyrics, just outlandish stories. Yep, yep. That's myth. Our own past has mythologies. Okay, let's going back to Odysseus. Somebody mentioned Odysseus. Going back to that. That was an entire ballad written about a fantasy, which is so. Yeah, there's a lot of that. We cannot leave that only to the metalheads. Yeah, I love metal too. Yeah, Taste of Banat says yes. We in Lagos know what's going on down there. Yep. Non-metal and non-fantasy, just crazy stories you hear from the brigade. Yeah. Am I butchering the word Lugoj? Just let me know, man. Uh, yes, we know what's going on down there. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Sorry, Tan- always getting distracted. Actually, one of my favorite. I don't know if you call them metal. One of my favorite groups is Coheed and Cambria. They still they're still producing. They do some of the most interesting to me musical mashups as a group, and they've always been doing this because it's very difficult to break out of. Some musicians have a hard time breaking out of what they do because the consumer expects them to remain down in their own silo, and uh, Coheed and Cambria is still holding it down. and the Shy Squad as well, still holding it down for like rock music and stuff, which just took a tumble, just weird. I don't know. Yeah. He says, no, the way you said it was pretty close. Lugoj. Hard G, soft J, G, J. That's how I'm perceiving it. Sorry. Yeah, I don't. Anyway, I love words because words make me. I'm sure I'm incorrect in thinking about what the place looks like, but I love the pronunciation of words because it puts an image in my head. Like a small animal, pet, dog, or a cat that sniffs a human to get their scent, and they sniff a thing, and I'm sure there's some process in their brain that makes them record what the scent is and probably puts an image in their head. I feel the same way about language. It like the way something is pronounced to me brings an image of things around it. Architecture and the weather and the way things smell and stuff like that. Yeah, I love it. Drew says, instead of illustrations, I would love to put lyrics in my system, but that is also something where I have to look at copyrights. Well, you can always fill it with quotes. White Wolf has been filling their books with quotes since the day one. All you have to do is just attribute where the quote came from. Like, just pick a bunch of like rock songs and pick a quote out of the rock song and put the artist and the year it came out. Yeah, do that, Drew. Um, you could get online and do a bunch of Google searches for poets and quotes and things related to what the each chapter is about or heading is about, and just put a quote in and put an attribution. Taste of Benat says the town where Bela Lugosi gets his name from. In Hungarian, it means Bela. It means Bela of Lugos, and we pronounce it here in the States Lugosi, just because we have a lazy tongue. But the name actually means Bella of. Oh, I didn't. God, I'm stupid. I didn't realize that. Like there's, I should have realized that because there's a guy I pick with. He's a good friend of mine at work. His last name is DeFrank, and he's Italian. And DeFrank means of Frank. So I make fun of him because there's a animated movie where the person's body has a people living in it, or animated version of his body functions, and they're trying to take care of Frank, the city of Frank, which is his body. And I'm like, oh, there's of Frank, you know. Anyway, anyway, it's hard to go into it because there's like a running joke about being part of Frank, and there's a lot of men's room scatological humor involved in it too. So yeah. Taste Witness says, not American pronunciation. Lugosi is Hungarian. That part of Romania used to belong to Hungary. Oh, I thought I was. Oh, I thought Lugosi was like an Americanization of the pronunciation of the word. Anyway, you're always invited back. Today's not normally as loose as it has been. We usually focus pretty heavily on fantasy and with a little sci-fi thrown in, except for Fridays. And then it's all about world building. We take something simple and world build off of it. Like, hey, if we're going to go here or do this thing, why? And I've been running a day of series. We broke away slightly from it, but technically it's a day of series. And pick a day and a day of something, and pick a word or a phrase, and then world build out of that. And we're absolutely going to keep going through that. I'm actually surprised I'm still running the channel this late into the season. Usually by about this time, I'm working so much that it's impossible to even run the show. I'd end up having to go air live at like 4 in the morning, or maybe like 3:30, 4 in the morning, and no one's going to stick around for that. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I'm going to let all of you go. Everyone have a great weekend. Exactly. Yeah, Drew says not everything is about America. Exactly. That is exactly right. And I love that's why I love the compare and contrast. I'm an individual who realizes that the world does not revolve around me and us here in the States, right? Um, like, for example, how many of us call America America, even though there is North America and South America and Central America, as if they don't exist? But that's, I mean, it's a thing. We love exporting arrogance. We're pretty good at it. Anyway, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Come back on Monday morning, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Not sure what period of time that is on your time, but you'll find it out. It'll show up. Hopefully it'll show up correctly. Guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Your time is very valuable. Thank you for spending it here. I hope, in your regard, spending your time here, it gives you just a little bit of change, especially in your tabletop role playing endeavors. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great one. See you later. Peace.